Normally every week my Webdvar addresses the Parsha of the week. And this week's Parsha is Parsha Tzav, but I'm not going to address the Parsha this week. That's because I think that there is something else that needs to be addressed. Many people have called me over the course of this past week and said to me, how are we going to celebrate Purim? Specifically, as a result of what's taken place this past week. When we sit down to our meals this Friday night, so many of us are going to be thinking about how the Fogel family, Hashem Yinkom Damam, Hashem avenged their blood, sat down to their meal last Friday night. And I'm sure they made Kiddush, and they washed and had a motzi, and they ate their meal, and they sang Zmiros, and they said Divrei Torah. And then they relaxed Friday night like so many of us do, and they went to bed early. But they were butchered. They were murdered. Terribly murdered in the most inhumane fashion. Little babies had their throats slit. And we can't even describe all that transpired. It breaks our hearts just to even think about it. And so how is it that we move on with Purim when we know that the family is still sitting Shiva, and that Beis Yisrael, the Jewish people, are really in mourning? And on a greater human level, we've also seen the terrible tragedy of what's transpired this week in Japan. We've seen cars and buildings being thrown around as if they were nothing, as if they were little toys. Kind of reminds me of the pasuk that we say in Tehillim. We actually say after L'chadodi, Mikolos Mayim Rabim Adiri Mishpareyam Adir Bamaram Hashem. From the sounds of the Mayim Rabim, the great water, Adiri Mishpareyam, so strong and powerful that they break the seas. Adir Bamaram Hashem, Hashem, you are even stronger than that. We see that Hashem has allowed Mother Nature to wreak havoc on life itself. We see that just in a moment, so much that was built over so many years was so simply destroyed. How are we able to move forward with Purim and celebrate a Jewish victory over evil, over darkness, when in essence we've seen darkness, we've seen human suffering, we've seen struggle and tragedy in this past week, and so much of it. It's so deep. So perhaps we can take a little comfort from the words of, believe it or not, Bilam Harasha. Bilam, who was a non-Jewish prophet, was forced by Hashem to bless the Jewish people when he intended on cursing them. And one of the things that he said was, Hein am kilavi yakum v'cha'ari nasa. They are a nation, the Jewish people are a nation that, like a lion cub, who is small and quiet, stands up. And like an ari, like a lion, yisnasa, raises itself. Because when you see a lion laying on the side on the floor, a lion doesn't look that challenging. It's laying on the floor after all. But when that lion stands up, it appears ferocious. And anything that's standing in its way suddenly cowers. So Bilam says the Jewish people have the power on an emotional and a spiritual level to rise up and to show courage and show determination to ensure that they have strength forever. For 4,000 years as a people, we have been knocked down. And unequivocally, every single time we've managed to find a way to get up. Let us make sure that this Purim is a more joyous Purim than ever before. Because we're able to recognize that just as HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the power to change anything in life, and even take away life at any moment, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God, gives us the gift to be able to keep the legacy and keep the tradition going. And He gives us the gift of life to be able to breathe and have an opportunity to influence the next generation and really influence the world every single day. And just as we don't have answers, Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the greatest Jew to ever live, didn't have answers when it came to the question as to why terrible things happen to the righteous, to good people. Yet we take comfort, and we're able to move and raise ourselves and celebrate Purim in knowing that even in our tsar, even in our most difficult moments, Hashem is with us, making sure that we as a nation stay intact, that we as a nation comfort each other, and that we are able to ensure that we celebrate the good things. We celebrate life. We celebrate the power of the Jewish spirit that continues to rise up in the face of its destruction. May we be zochet to celebrate this Purim and ensure that the legacy and the memory of the Fogel family and all that we've lost is kept within our hearts, what brings a smile to our faces in knowing that the tradition still continues and that the simcha of life itself is so precious in our minds and hearts, and that we recognize it and treat it as sacredly as it is. Thank you for listening. Purim Sameach and Shabbat Shalom.